All right, folks, welcome. This is Walter and Pat Boyer from Bookends. We are calling from New Jersey, and we're really proud tonight to help Ron Swoboda launch the paperback version of Here's the Catch. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, we can't do this live, so we're doing Zoom calls, and that's the best we can do for right now, but we're really excited to talk about the book. Just came out in paperback, and Ron is going to be interviewed by our own Greg Arabatis. Sorry. Greg is an expert in scaling and growing early stage product companies in the nutritional supplement industry and works with numerous professional athletes and celebrities as brand ambassadors and influencers. And we've worked with Greg this is probably our 7th or 8th time. He's a great MC. So Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you, you and Ron's.
Well, thank you, Walter. And just to amplify, as Walter has said, one of the challenges that small businesses and independent bookstores have been contending with throughout this pandemic is to stay afloat. So we came up with this concept and idea back last September, October, and have been doing these every few weeks, and they've been going really well. And obviously, we all hope to get back together, being able to do these things live over the next few months. But in the interim, if you're watching this in a recorded version, please do pick up Ron's book directly from Bookends Bookstore. The website is www.book-ends.com, or you can call the bookstore directly to order this and many other fine books. Let's do what we can to support this fine independent bookstore that's been serving New Jersey and the community for over 30 years. And without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Ron Swoboda. Ron played right field for the Mets from 1965 to 1970. He also played for the Montreal Expos in 71 and the Yankees from 71 to 73. Afterwards, he became a TV broadcaster in New York for WCBS, Milwaukee, and also New Orleans, where he currently lives. He also was a color commentator for telecasts on the Marlins AAA network and club, and he currently lives in New Orleans with his family. So first question, Ron. You came up to the majors. Your first manager was, if I'm not mistaken, was Casey Stengel. Could you share some memories with regards to Casey Stengel?
Yeah, I think you hear an awful lot of talk about living legends and, walking around amongst the rest of us mortals. I felt like when I was around Casey Stengel, I was in the presence of a legend, and he was signed by the New York Mets because they knew back then in 1962 when they were born, because of the rules of expansion back then, they were going to be a bad team, and they were going to be a bad team for a while until they could grow their system and start producing more talent. And they were going to have to deal with the media in New York, which was mainly writers back then. TV came later, but Casey always called the writers my writers. He thought his job was to entertain them and to give them something to write about and to chew on, so they didn't turn on the franchise when we were losing 100 games a year, which we did with regularity, including 62, 63, 64, and 65 when I showed up, and didn't change that much. But being around him, I felt like Stengel was one of these incredible characters, authentic to the core, who spoke in parables. The writers always talked about Casey going on and on and on when they asked him a question, and he'd take them, he'd take them around the primrose path. If he didn't want to give them a straight answer, he'd walk them around the building a couple of times, and when they got back, they weren't sure what they had asked him. That was his way of censoring the media with deluge, right? You can censor the media by limiting what you give them, or what you did if you were Casey Stengel, you drowned them in words. And he was good at it. He was wonderful. And he was a wonderful manager to me.
I had heard a story that at one point in between innings, one of the pitchers was really getting lit up. And when they came in, they said to him, Skip, where do you want me to play in right field? Where do you want me to play next inning? And he said, how about 2 rows into the stands or 3 rows into the stands?
Look, you know, he understood, you know, here's a guy that came to the Mets after a long and illustrious career winning American League pennants and World Series with the New York Yankees. The Yankees fired Stengel because he was 70 years old, and they made that very clear. They didn't think a man that age should be handling a major league team. When Stengel was immediately hired by the New York Mets, one of his lines at the opening press conference was, you know, the Yankees let me go because I was 70 years old. He says, but I'm here to tell you, I'm not going to ever make that mistake again.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So he retired at that point and took on more of a consultant's role with the Mets. Gil Hodges comes over. I know that initially, after reading the book, that things were a little bit rocky at first with Gil. Talk a little bit about that spring training in '69, because I know '68 was not a great season, but '69. What was the feeling that you got that this might be something special in Gil's particular style of managing?
Yeah, Gil was the boss, and it was his way or the highway, and I eventually got the highway. And I graded under his authoritarianism is probably not a bad word. I had a tough time with that, and it was all on me. It was my immaturity. Hodges knew how he wanted you to play ball. He wanted you to act like an adult, get yourself ready to play, and be the best player you could be. And I could do that some of the time, but I couldn't do it all of the time. And so we had some blue moments between us, but there was never any question of Hodges as the essence of a major league manager. One of the things I did, 1968 was an indication that we were going to get better, that we had all this young pitching, and that, I expected, and I think most guys did in 1969, to take the next step. And we didn't know where that was. When the most games you've won are 70 some games, you don't know there's 100 wins in your future. As it turns out, there were in 1969. So, we're all trying to figure out where this is all going as well. And Hodges, I think, if you go back, and one of the beautiful things today with the internet is you can go back and look at all of the box scores and play-by-play sheets on Baseball Reference and just go through them game by game, play by play. And I did that when I was writing the memoir because it refreshed me in a way that nothing else could. And I looked at those situations where Hodges made really interesting managerial decisions on the mark in the moment. And he was incredible. And I'm very much one of those people that thinks if you add up what he was as a manager in the time that he was allowed to be a manager, cut short by a premature passing, and the time that he was allowed to be a major league player and what he meant to those Dodger teams, before he was finished. You add all of that up, and if Hodges doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, there's something seriously wrong with the process, in my humble opinion. But Gil was in charge, and if you look at those play-by-play sheets and the box scores, that first month and a half, 2 months of that season, Gil is looking for something. He wants somebody to catch on fire, and he's playing a lot of us outfielders. He's playing Cleon Jones at first base and left field, and Art Shamsky came late out of spring training because he hurt his back. But when he got there, he and I were platooning a little in right field, and Rod Gasper was getting a chance to play. He was a young outfielder with with some defensive capabilities, and Amos Otis was on that team before he became an all-star in the American League after the Mets traded him, trying to get a third baseman, and they traded him for Joe Foy, who was a disaster. But in 1969, Hodges was looking around for something. He was looking for somebody to get hot. If you didn't hit, you didn't play. And I wasn't doing anything early on. I had a little burst out of the gate, and then I went stone quiet. And so I'm watching a lot of other people play, and we're going into May, late May. And into late May, this team that's bubbling around 500, we're not exciting anyone. We're not letting out anything that would even hint at the way that season was going to end for us. And we go on in Shea Stadium, the California teams come in, and it's the Dodgers and the Giants, which of course the Mets, all of their uniform colors and whatnot are an amalgamation of the Dodgers and the Giants. The Giants NY on the hat, the Dodgers script across the front of the home uniform. We were Dodger blue and San Francisco orange. That was blue and orange. That's what the Mets were. That's what our colors were. So we were a combination of that. And so when you played those teams, they got your attention. Of course, there was Willie Mays and Juan Marichal on the Giants, and Sandy Koufax, and they were gone by then. Koufax and Drysdale, but the Dodgers were the Dodgers, and they always seemed to get your attention. And we reeled off, starting in late May against the California team, 11 straight wins. It started at Shea. We swept them, and then we went right on the road. And after a long trip out to California, we picked up where we left off and finished with an 11-game win streak. That's when that season came alive. That's when that ownership and Gil Hodges, and I think our general manager, Johnny Murphy, who was another really solid baseball guy, I think that's when the light came on, and they went, holy cow, we just vaulted into relevance. So what else do we need now to make this team a little better? And Don Clendenin, a first baseman with Montreal, was sitting out there, and that's when they made the Don Clendenin deal. And they didn't give away all the Mets' young pitching, which everybody wanted. And we end up with Don Clendenin, who is ready to roll and wants to play for the New York Mets. And he's going to platoon at first base with Eddie Kranepool, and we're going to be better for it. And that's where things moved on to what happened.
Yeah, and I understand from the book that Don used to get on everybody, but he could back it up with his offense and his defense, and he kept everybody loose, but he'd get on everyone, and I think he became a very successful attorney post-career.
Well, there's an expression in baseball, a clubhouse lawyer. Clendenin was the only clubhouse lawyer I ever heard of who was actually studying law, went on and passed the bar, and became an attorney. He was a clubhouse lawyer, and he got on everybody. He could needle Seaver and needle Rod Gasper, at the top and the bottom of the, whatever the top and the bottom of the roster was, and everybody in between. Clendenin had, I think, the personal wherewithal, the respect as a veteran player and a guy who could chirp. I mean, Clendenin could chirp, and he could talk, and he liked to do it, and it was good stuff. And you know what? Sometimes you wanted to tell him to shut the heck up, but it was good stuff, and it ended up serving a very important purpose. And that, when we were rolling, was to keep us grounded, keep our feet on the ground. But he did it in a wonderful way, and he did it from a maturity and a sense of humor that we got.
You talked about in the book Eddie Yost and spoke very fondly about Eddie and how he improved your defense and was one of the best in terms of heading fungos that in Major League history. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because obviously you were a phenomenal defensive player outside of being a great offensive player, but you talked about at great length about him hitting fungos at you and until your hands were sore.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had made some mistakes as an outfielder, and here's an aspect that a lot of people don't understand. First time you come to Shea Stadium, which stands, it's 3 tiers tall, and I think I alluded to the Globe Theater and in a big round triple-decker ballpark. And what that meant was, if you went into the outfield at Shea Stadium, very few fly balls came out of the crowd. So the background was almost always the crowd. And you had to read the baseball against that sort of fluid, mercurial background that changed with the seasons and the light and the clouds and the sun and everything, and people moving around and colored shirts. It wasn't easy. And more than one pretty good outfielder came to Shea Stadium and made mistakes on tough balls, because until you got kind of used to it, it was like the Astrodome, you know, with the panels up top and all the structure that you weren't accustomed to. Shea Stadium could be a problem until you got used to it. And I felt like I made a bunch of mistakes as a young outfielder, and I started working with Eddie Yost, and all I asked him to do was hit me line drives and ground balls. Hit me the hard ones. I always formed this like this cone of difficulty. In other words, if you put a cone around right here where the balls come, those balls in that small cone hit hard are the tough plays, because they're the ones you have to figure out which way do you turn. Do I charge this line drive? Do I wait? Have a move if you're not sure, which is nothing. You know, if you need a move when you're not sure. So you don't go boom, 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 running in on a ball and you're not sure and it's over your head. And have a move where you can take your strong side turn. And I worked with him on stuff and really taught myself, you know, there weren't people showing me these things. I figured out some stuff by taking thousands of fungos from Eddie Yost, where I figured out my strong turn. I'm a right-hander. I basically want to turn right. I basically want to turn to the right on anything that's right up the middle here. So if you're wrong and it fades a little the other way, you just keep going in a circle like a skater, and you don't make the mistake of juking back and forth and not getting deep on certain balls that could fool you. And so I got better at that. And plus you're using your hands. I'm playing at speed. I'm practicing at speed. I'm playing these balls like it's 2 outs and the winning run on second base, and I got to come charging hard and come up with the ball and make a good throw. I'm doing everything but throwing it hard and trying to get better, so that if you need to throw somebody out, if you need to make that kind of play, if you need to make a great play, you got a better chance of doing it. And you know, do I visualize a catch like I made off of Brooks Robinson in Game 4 of the World Series? No, absolutely not. That is one of those things, and I think I quoted Browning about, you know, if your reach doesn't exceed your grasp, then what is a heaven for? Well, occasionally your reach exceeds your grasp, you know, and if you work hard enough at it, it will happen for you, and it did for me.
That's a wonderful message. So obviously someone of great impact during that season and a loss that impacted many of us recently. we had our good friend Eric Sherman on during the last call on the book that he released about the Boston Red Sox of '86. And obviously that was the end of Tom Seaver's career. You had Tom in the beginning, and obviously Eric had written a book about your trip to California.
Yes.
If you could share some of the memories about Tom. Tom is someone that is very close to my heart, and that hit hard for me personally with Tom's passing. So if you could share a little bit, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, you know, fans know Tom Seaver as a Hall of Fame pitcher, you know, as a guy that, you know, from start to finish in his career until he couldn't do it anymore was on an elite level. And you know, Seaver along with Koosman, if you were going to take two people out of that pitching staff and say, you know, can you do it without them? You cannot do it without Tom Seaver, and you cannot do it without a Jerry Koosman, period. Okay? Seaver was that kind of force. Everybody knows his excellence as a player. They saw it day in and day out, and now, you know, it's on record in video, and you can visit that stuff and get a sense of what he was as a pitcher. We got a chance to go out to California. Art Shamsky, the guy that I platooned down the stretch and into the World Series with in right field. We got a chance to see Seaver's love affair with making great wine and what it meant to him as a California guy, and how much that was exactly what he wanted to be doing. Every day, got up with his dogs and went out to 3.5 acres of spectacular Cabernet grapes that he was growing there in Calistoga, California. It was a love affair with the most incredible kind of agriculture you can imagine, because there's no accidents in growing, you know, outstanding wine grapes. Okay, everything is measured and everything is precise. When you water, when they're ready to be picked, it's all it's an exact science. The weather can obviously, you know, Seaver said to me one time, the difference between a great year growing grapes and a mediocre year, you know, a so-so, not so good year, it's between $500,000 in product and $250,000 in product. The swing for 3.5 acres can be that much. And I'm like, wow. And that's with you controlling everything that you can control. Mother Nature still makes the call on what kind of year it's going to be. And so Seaver worked so hard at that, and he took us out and walked us around and talked about how they found that piece of land that sat on the hillside, 3.5 acres. His home was up the side of this mountain, and you know, nothing existed there until Tom cleared it of there were Douglas fir and some pine trees, and in that area, and found a perfect hillside for Cabernet, and that's what he was doing, and he loved it so much. And we were lucky because Tom was kind of in the throes of that Lewy body dementia. If you saw him on the day we were there, you would have never known it. But there were certain points where, you know, I remember calling him one time about a situation when I was writing the book, and I said, you know, Hodges came out before I made the catch. Hodges came out and had a big meeting on the mound with Seaver. We had first and third, you know, nobody out, and what was the meeting about? And Tom said to me on the phone, Rocky, I have no memory. And he said it in a way that I found so profoundly sad, because I don't live back in that time. I love those memories. Those memories are golden to me. And I know they are to Tom Seaver. And the idea that something could get in there and steal him from you and they're gone is tragic on a level I can barely express. And that's what he was saying to me. Some things had gone away and they're not coming back. And I felt so utterly disturbed by all of that. So we got to see Tom on a great day, and he gave us, you know, a great tour, and Sham and Eric Sherman interviewed him, and you know, and Jerry Kuzman was there, and he's always a joy to be with. And Buddy Harrelson, who is in the throes now of Alzheimer's, which is another, you know, I mean, some of the smartest guys on that team are having dementia problems, and you know, Buddy's going to probably have to go into a facility at some point in the near future, and so he can be better cared for. And you know, I feel so awful about that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's tough to respond to. So we're going to try and go in a little bit more positive direction. As it relates to Seaver, one of the things that I recall is what an incredible teammate he was. And there were many a time that he was locked up and facing Bob Gibson. And in one instance, I recall from your book, I believe, where Gibson drilled one of the Mets players, and then Tom turned around and nailed Gibson.
I don't know if it was Bob Gibson, but I know we played the Cubs, who were our, you know, our prime adversaries in 1969. It became us and the Cubs. And there was a time when you know, Leo DeRocher thought he invented baseball. He might have been a pretty good baseball guy. I'm not, you know, of his level of baseball, but I played for Gil Hodges, who I think was 2 or 3 times the manager that Leo DeRocher was, and Leo thought he'd start the ball game off knocking Tommy Agee down. Okay. Seaver wasn't on the mound. Jerry Kuzman was on the mound, and Kuzman wasn't going to have it. And in the top of the 2nd inning, up comes Ron Santo leading off. And Kuzman gave him his best gas right here, right in the ear hole. And the message was, and somehow Ron Santos spun and got his arm in front of the ball and got hit on the forearm. It sounded like he broke his arm, and Santos screamed like he was shot, and it was like stunning in its effect, and everybody took a deep breath, and when, you know, and Seaver was up on the steps going, "You don't want to get in that game. You don't want to play that game with us." But I will tell you this, Seaver might have thrown the ball behind Ron Santo, but the killer was Jerry Kuzman, and Kuzman wasted no time in throwing, you know, the kind of a pitch to Santo that made it all stop, because someone was going to get hurt if you wanted to play that game, Leo, and it stopped right there. That's what happened.
Great story. So a couple of other players you mentioned in the book, and sadly that we've lost we lost during last season. Richie Allen, Dick Allen.
Yes.
We don't hear enough about him, but you certainly mentioned him in the book.
You had to love Dick Allen.
Yeah, what wasn't the love?
You know, look, he got unhappy in Philadelphia, and you know, here's a guy, you know, if this isn't a Hall of Fame player, you know, if he could have, you know, been on the field more often, Dick Allen was the most, if you put Dick Allen out there with Henry Aaron and Willie McCovey and Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and all those guys, you're going to notice Dick Allen. And Dick Allen loved to play baseball, loved to play hardball. Let's go. Let me see what you got. Give me your good one. And played the game with such joy. And I just think he was unhappy in Philadelphia. And, you know, what was Bob Euchre's line about Philadelphia? Those people would boo an Easter egg hunt, right? The fans got on him a little bit, and he started writing messages to the fans in the dirt, you know, you know, and ended up, they were coming to Shea Stadium for, and I mentioned this in the book because it was incredible to me. The Phillies are coming down to play us. Dick Allen is driving himself from Philadelphia to New York, but he's going to stop at Monmouth where he has a racehorse that's running. And I don't know if he just got confused or didn't know what time it was. It was a doubleheader and he missed the first game. And I think the manager, I think, was Danny Ozark, or I'm trying to think of who was the manager of the Phillies back then. It wasn't Gene Mock. But here's Dick Allen listening on the radio and realizes I should have been at the ballpark. He's driving down the street and down the New Jersey Turnpike, and he hears he's been suspended indefinitely. So he does a U-turn back to Philadelphia, and he's out for, you know, it's almost a month, I think he was out. And so the Phillies come without Dick Allen. Johnny Callison, their former all-star right fielder, is out. Darren Johnson, a veteran guy, is out. Larry Heisel, a young hitter, is not doing it quite yet. You know, they end up putting a bunch of guys in the lineup, and I don't mean to demean the guys that played against us, but we got Nolan Ryan going, and he's throwing pretty good. And we're leading like 5-0 after 4 or 5 innings. And the reason it all struck me as sitting there, I wasn't in the game. I'm sitting there with a nice seat and a good view. The reason it struck me was, here's the Phillies, who weren't that great a team. And now they've got 4 or 5 of their really good players aren't in the lineup for various reasons. And we're leading them 5-0. And in all the time I've been a New York Met since 1965, I've never felt sorry for anybody else. Never had the opportunity to feel sorry for somebody else. And I'm sitting there thinking, these poor guys are, you know, they don't have a chance. Ryan is rolling, and we're gonna, you know, we're gonna chew these guys up, and I'm gonna be in the clubhouse having a Schaefer beer in about 2.5 hours, and I can't wait. Well, you know, as fate would have it, you know, these guys that were in the lineup, they start producing, and they start getting base hits and knocking boom, 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 and next thing you know, we lose the ball game. And it was one of those games that, you know, what it said to me was, you know, anytime you think this game is over, because there's no clock going to save you, but anytime you make the mistake of thinking, well, we got them now, you don't got them now. And we lost that game. And I was thinking of the gods in baseball, you know, and I felt like they were talking directly to me. You know, they were like saying, don't ever make the mistake of celebrating, you know, early for a win. Or as Yogi Berra would always say, more succinctly, it ain't over till it's over. It was the worst team you could imagine, and they beat us from behind.
So Ron, you've got some interesting memorabilia there in your home in Louisiana. We talked before we went on live about meeting Jackie Robinson and an Old Timers Day, but if you could share some of your prized pieces that you have there in your office, I'm sure
Well,
the viewers would
that's,
love to see them.
well, this is my, we're in my inner sanctum, and what I'll try to do is, I'm a big fan of impressionist, post-impressionist art. And if you look around, you know, as I turn the camera this way, you can see I've got a couple of pieces of, you know, there's a self-portrait of Van Gogh, who is one of my favorites, and just a bunch of other things that I've collected. I showed you earlier, there's a guy, a friend of mine, made a composite of my catch right there, and you can see a lot of other things in this room here that are all important to me. These are memories from 60, 70 years that that I've collected. I got a basketball signed by Wilt Chamberlain. I got you know, I'm a kid from Baltimore, you know, and there's my catch in the background there. I'll be darned. Those cars up there are models. The one in the middle was a model made by my brother, who built these wonderful models. And you know, back here is a bunch of baseball memories. You see that Colts helmet there right in the middle of the screen? That's signed by Johnny Unitas. I'm a kid growing up in Baltimore. Now look, we played in Shea Stadium, and that's where the Jets played. And when they met in that Super Bowl, when everybody picked the Baltimore Colts, and Johnny U was on the bench because Earl Morrow was the quarterback, and Joe Namath called the victory. I feel like if the Colts had gotten Johnny Unitas into that ball game, he would have figured out how to win it. And I'm a big Joe Namath fan and a big Jets fan from back then. But I'm gonna tell you, when you're from Baltimore, the God is Johnny Unitas, and I will believe to my dying day that if they got him in there with enough time to work, Unitas wins that game. But this is a room full of memories that can never be replaced. And you know, it's like when all of this has to come down, you know, I'm not a kid anymore. When all of this has to come down, I don't know what the heck's going to happen to it. I don't think any of my kids want any of this stuff, but it's stuff that's meant a lot to me. You know, tickets to art galleries in Paris, where I was lucky enough to go a couple of times and visit the art and architecture. You know, it's important stuff to me. You know, as I've gotten older, I've been fortunate enough to chase around I've been able to chase around a bunch of stuff. So it's been a wonderful thing. I apologize, had a little
No.
interruption. But
Ron, what I'm gonna
that's
do now is-
where I'm sitting. And this is, I said it before, it's, some people have suggested this is like being on the inside of my brain.
That's great. I'm gonna I'll give my college-age son an opportunity to ask a couple of questions, because one of the things that I found to be very important is our great game is losing interest with the younger generation. They're gravitating to football and basketball, and both my boys, I want to keep them involved, and they know the history of the Mets and the other teams, but I always involve them a little bit. So Austin, come on over here and ask a couple questions.
Perfect.
Hi, Ron.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Hope you're doing the same. Now, the first question I have is, how did your life change after that catch?
You know, it doesn't change all at once. Obviously, as the event goes through time, you know, you as a player, you probably made a play, you're never going to make a play quite like that again. So in a lot of ways, it's not repeatable. I think the degree of difficulty was of a magnitude that you're not going to do that again. And what happens is, as you go through your career, you're always sort of attached to it. People continue to talk about it, and you become one with this event. And of course, everything, I think, hinges on the fact that that play helped us win game number 4. If we lose game number 4 against the Baltimore Orioles in 1969, we're tied at 2, and the door is open. And that Baltimore team is not somebody you want to, let back into it. So the fact that that was right at the fulcrum of that World Series, and we nailed it down and won it, and went up 3-1 and closed it out the next day without giving any more oxygen to the Orioles, creates, this mystique and me being associated with this catch, and the story's still interesting to me. And I don't spend a lot of time dwelling on it. I'm not asked a lot about it here in New Orleans, but I do hear from people all the time. And I thought when I was, 70 some years old, it was time to either tell this story or forget about it. And I thought with the 50th anniversary, enough water had gone under the bridge that it was time for me to write. I had spent a lot of time as a sports reporter doing my own writing, and as a columnist here in New Orleans writing for New Orleans Magazine, that I felt like I could write this thing and tell the story the right way and in the best way. And not to make any big deal about it, but just to, let people know what it felt like to go through a season of ups and downs, an everyman kind of guy who's not going to be an all-star, not going to, not going to create numbers that make people go, wow. So I think that's how it's changed me, in the sense that I've always had that moniker. Otherwise, I'm another guy that was lucky enough to play Major League Baseball, and without that little tag on it, and it, it's considerable. That reference has continued, and it continues to amaze me, that people remember it. It's nice to be remembered, especially for the best thing you ever did in your baseball career. Bill Buckner saw the other side of that coin in the '86 series, when he got nailed for a ball that got by him and cost the Red Sox the series. I don't know what I would have done had I try, every once in a while, I try to imagine what life would be like if I hadn't made that catch, and I get disturbed and I stop thinking about it.
Now, in your book, Here's the Catch, you have a photo with Willie Mays. I was wondering if you could explain the backstory of this photo.
When you do a book, and Mays coming to Shea Stadium, or maybe we took it. Can you tell me? I'm not looking at it now. Is it with a home uniform or an away uniform? Because I can't tell you without seeing it. It may not have any more history than the fact that we were together on the field, and some guy with a camera from AP or UPI or somebody else said, "Can we get a photo of you guys together?" And I would always want to take a picture with Willie Mays. He was a guy you could not take your eyes off of.
So we're running out of time. Want to touch on a couple of other quick points. Ron, with the changes that they've made in the game today, the runner on second base to start extra innings, the pitch clock in between innings of how many pitches a pitcher can throw. Are you a proponent of the changes that they're making, replay and all these other things from when you?
I am not a proponent of most of the changes. I like two wild cards in each league. I think that was genius. I thought one wild card in each league was not genius. Major League Baseball players can't play 9 innings of double headers. It's almost like the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, is saying, people don't like baseball enough, so we can't give them too much. Let's withhold some baseball. Let's get them in and out of there quickly. Let's figure out how to get these games over with. Let's not let these major leaguers, the best players in the world, solve the game in with their own abilities in a way that baseball has proscribed many years ago, which I thought was brilliant. You win the game by circumstance. And it's, I think, sad that baseball is morphing into something else now, and, change the exit speed of baseballs. Replay is wonderful. It's necessary because the game is so fast. The umpires today struggle with it. But if you're proud of that process, why don't you let us see what's going and hear what those guys who are looking at the replays have to say? If you're proud of the process, let us hear it all. Nothing's going on in the ballpark while that process is happening, and you're trying to make the game faster, more interesting, and you take one of the most interesting things in the game away because you have to protect something. I don't get it. I don't get Rob Manfred. And I don't think, he may love being commissioner of baseball, but he clearly doesn't love baseball, not the game that I love.
Same here. I'd rather sit through a 21 inning game than see a runner standing on second base to start the next inning and have a guy bunt him over. But we can go on all night about that, Ron.
Well, it doesn't impact the road team the same way. So that's why I don't like it. Even though you give them both a guy on second base, it doesn't impact them the same way. It's fine in minor league baseball. People don't come to I do and have done a lot of minor league baseball here in New Orleans when we had a AAA team. They don't come here. They don't come to minor league baseball to watch 14, 15 inning games, and you don't have the pitching to take it that deep, generally speaking. But in the major leagues, you do. And I think it's blasphemy.
I agree. So quickly, last question. Talk briefly about being named through, by the way, a mutual friend, Mike Dempsey, sends his regards, about being named to the New York State Hall of Fame.
Say that again now?
What that meant to you, being named to the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame, what that honor meant to you 2 years ago.
The who's Hall of Fame? I can't hear that.
Being named to the New York State Baseball.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm always humbled by those kind of things, because if you look at my numbers, you might go, whose Hall of Fame does he belong in? The New York State Hall of Fame is a Hall of Fame basically looking for a place. It's looking for a place, and probably the truth is too many people like yours truly are in it because we could pay our own way up there to go to the banquet, and I'm I'm humbled by it, but at the same time, it needs to reflect, more greatness than me. And I hope they succeed in finding a place or finding some funding if they are as legit as they say they are. I don't know much more about it than that.
Well, in my book, there is greatness, Ron, and what you've done. I mean, your catch, what that contribution has meant in New York sports history is, it's at Citi Field. It's there on the outfield wall. It's one of the top moments in New York Mets history. There is an affinity towards a 69 team like very few in New York. It's right up there with those great Knicks teams, the Jets teams that won, the great Yankee team. So I thank you for this time, this opportunity for us to share memories, to talk about the various players, the great Tom Seaver, Jerry Kuzman, who's actually having his number retired at a ceremony later this season. I don't know if you're going to be part of that or not, but
I hope I can.
yeah, it would be great. And hopefully it'll be in front of a packed stadium. So thank you very much. It's been a great opportunity for us to chat for the last 45, 50 minutes. And I'm going to turn it back over to Pat and Walter. And I'm sorry if we went a little bit long.
Loved it, man. Thank you.
It's a great job, Greg and Ron. Fantastic.
Thank you, Walter.
For the fans out there, thank you for participating. Ron is sending us some signed book plates. We'll be placing them in the book.
Yes.
And mailing them out to you later on this week. If you need additional books, we'll have them. If you need a book for your neighbor or father, it makes a great Father's Day gift. So thanks for everything. And thank you, Ron, for giving a little tour of your office there. That was really fascinating. We don't normally get inside people's houses when we do events at the store. So it's a benefit of doing a virtual event.
You're welcome.
Great job. And
Thank you, folks.
Great evening. And thank you, Greg.
Get back to the city. I can tell you that I'm a, Metropolitan Museum, MoMA. I miss them dearly. New York is a place of art for me.
Yeah, great times, great memories, and thanks for everybody out there. Appreciate it. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Bye-bye.